All right, everything's good. All right,
Yes, sir.
so we got the third episode here, the podcast, and I decided to touch on a topic, a little close to home for me, which is IGLing. And in order to get a good grasp of this topic, we had to reach out to someone who knows this pretty deeply. So that someone is the current IGL of the NA ECL roster, known as Flyte. Everyone, please welcome the brains behind the success, John Marin, aka MDS.
Hey, how you guys doing? Glad to be here.
So we'll be talking about IGLing. He also doesn't have a webcam, that's why it's like this right now. If I do this, oh shit, just messed it up. Okay. So yeah, we'll just hop right into it. So when did you start playing CS?
So I started playing CS a long time ago. I started playing CS when I was 12 years old, which is
Holy
19
shit.
years ago at this point. Yes, sir. I did not start taking the game seriously though until like I guess you could call me like a late bloomer. I didn't start playing competitively till I was 27.
What
So I
the? Holy
basically
shit! It's
yeah.
15
So I
years.
Yeah, so like I just played with my friends for like the entire time when I was a kid, essentially, and we never took it seriously. Like we just played for fun. Um, but I always had a passion for the game, and I always enjoyed the process of becoming better, but I never really took it seriously. So I played for years, and it was just completely casually for fun. And then I joined the Air Force, and I was active duty Air Force for 5 years.
Oh shit.
And so I was in the Air Force 5 years. I got out. I came back. I was actually had plans to start a real estate company with one of my friends. But one of my really old CS buddies, one day he sent me like the stream of the 2018 Boston Major, and I was watching. I was like, "Holy crap, man! Like this is insane! Like like the last
Yeah.
time I played the game, like they were playing tournaments in hotel lobbies, right? Like, and then now they got this crazy stage and all this hype around it and crazy prize money. And I guess you could say it kind of reignited the flame that had died for a long time. And
Yeah.
I just started playing again, and I haven't looked back since.
Was it live, the major, or was it like a video?
Yes, yeah, it was live. It was
Damn. So
live.
you got to
Yeah.
see like one of the craziest, like,
Yeah, literally. That was
yeah,
like my first experience back in Pro CS was seeing like the Cloud9 comeback and all that. It was insane, man. It was
damn.
actually crazy.
It's been all downhill since there for
Yeah,
NA.
yeah.
That's crazy.
We're
That's
back.
to get
We're
back
coming
in the
back up,
game.
man.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, hey, you're gonna be next up. Take flight, Boston Major,
Yes, sir.
second
Yes,
run.
sir. Yes, sir.
So you said you late bloomed at what was the age again? 27.
27 is when I started like playing again.
So
So I like. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah,
Go
I was
ahead.
gonna
My
say
fault.
that the 15 years we just like playing casually, like.
Yeah, so again, so I played from the age of like 12 to about 19, and I was just playing on and off casually, right? Like I think maybe like a year or so there, somewhere along high school, I didn't really play at all, but I was playing like just casually, and so I didn't play at all like for that 5 years I was in the military. I didn't even own like a computer,
Yeah.
and so I just started playing again back in, like I said, like 2018 when I came back. So I technically I've been playing for 18 years or so, but like probably about 7 years of that is like not playing at all. So it's
Yeah.
just been a lot of sporadic, but definitely for the last like 5 years now I've been playing consistently. So
Shit, man. I'm surprised you didn't play that much in the Air Force because I had a lot of friends that they joined the military, and that's all
hmm
they did was a game. Like they
well,
they had
it's
like the
because
setups.
I was stationed overseas on
Oh
both of
shit.
my So it was like I kind of like just put gaming on the back seat for all those years, right? Like I was stationed in Guam and then in
Oh
Turkey.
shit.
Yeah, so I was just like, I wasn't really doing any gaming in Guam. I was just at the beach all the time and going
Yeah.
out and stuff. And um, yeah, I don't know. Like during that period of my life, I just like the most games I would play is like 2K with like the boys. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
play some 2K, have some drinks, stuff like that. But wasn't really doing much gaming, to be honest with you.
Makes sense. Yeah. All my friends they never got like stationed outside the states, so they're
Hmm.
just stuck here playing. One of them was at 29 Palms. I don't know if you know like about that in the Marine Corps. It's like the
Uh,
shittiest base to get put. It's like the middle of the desert. So you had nothing,
really?
literally nothing to do like but play
Yeah,
CS.
but
So
just game. Yeah, I
yeah.
got you. Got you.
Um,
Got you.
but yeah, you started back up again. What 27? When did you get into the
Hmm.
IGL role? specifically?
So yeah, so when I first started playing again, I was just playing with my friends from way back in the day. And it took me about like I played like 3 seasons of Open with them. And I always knew that like honestly I was like way better than them. But I wanted to just like, like try to play with them again, see if we could do something. And after about 3 seasons, I realized that like I wasn't gonna go anywhere playing with these guys, right? Like, and then they knew that too. They were even telling me, like, bro, like go, like if you want to play, like don't play with us. Like go find some new people to play with.
Yeah.
Uh, but I started the IGL role when after I left my friends, I just kind of put myself out there. I found a team that of it was like an IM team. It was called Spearhead Esports. There's some players. There's players like Yoko, uh, Static, Frost, Siphon, some guys there, and I just joined as a player, and essentially after about 2 weeks of being on the team was like, yeah, you need to be the IGL
Mm.
because like I wasn't IGLing, but the calls that the guy was making, I was always kind of like, why are we doing this? Like we shouldn't be doing it this way. And I would always like say my piece, and it just got to the point where um, they were literally like, you need to IGL, John. So I guess it was kind of like forced upon me in that way, if you will, which I feel like a lot of IGLs have that same kind of like background, that same story, but it was kind of forced upon me. And then I just went from there, right? And I started IGLing. So that was back in like 2019 now, I guess you could say. Yeah. So that is when I started IGLing though. It was basically like in about the IM level.
Okay. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's pretty interesting because I had a similar experience where it was like a friend group. It's like my closest friend group. We used to play CS a lot, and like we tried like making an open team and stuff. And then I was just
Hmm.
naturally like just calling like mid round, like, oh, we need this rotating stuff. And then one of my friends, he told me, he's like, yeah, I think this is like your thing, kind of like the IGL spot.
Yeah.
And then I kind of
Uh-huh.
like I was like, you know what, it is my thing, and like I just
Yeah.
I kind of just like stuck with it, you know. Um,
Uh-huh.
so I wonder if there's something to do with that, with like the IGL role, like how much of it like comes off of like natural just like leadership skills that you just that kind of just like rise to the top when you're in a team
Yeah.
environment and people just notice it.
I definitely think that has a lot to do with it. So like every job I've ever worked in my life when I was in the military, like even when I was in school doing things, like I kind of just naturally found myself in positions of leadership.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that that has a lot to do with it. Like the people that have the leadership skills kind of innately will inevitably become IGLs, I think. Like even
Yeah.
if it doesn't happen immediately in their playing career, eventually they will become an IGL because like as someone that has like leadership skills and has that sort of way of thinking about things, I think it's very hard to like not become the IGL because it's very hard to sit back and see things being done maybe not the best way and not be able to say anything when you are that type of person, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it definitely just kind of happens naturally, and it gets like no matter where. Yeah, that's something I've kind of learned over these years. Like no matter how you try to like avoid it, you try to not be the IGL. You don't want to be the IGL. You just want to play the game. You're going to inevitably be it no matter what. So
Yeah. It's
I've
like
just
a
I've just yeah I've
Jonah
just
and like
accepted it at this
Nineveh.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Running
literally.
running from your destiny. That,
Exactly.
I definitely think there's some truth to that because like if that shit is that like innate to someone's personality, like you're just suppressing like who you are while you're playing, and like that's just impossible to do in like
Exactly.
long term. Eventually, you're gonna start disagreeing with your IGL if you're like you have like leadership tendencies that you're suppressing, and then there's gonna be like
Hmm.
some type of role clashes, and you know someone's gonna rise to the top. Maybe you join a different team
Exactly.
where you end up taking over the IGL role. Which I
Nah, for
want to.
sure.
I have a question for that, but I think it's for
Sure.
later on about uh, leadership skills versus just logistics. But we'll wait for that. Let's start with it. Let's
Okay.
go with the basics.
No
Um,
worries.
so yeah, in your own words, if you were to describe the IGL role, what responsibilities and qualities are expected?
So for me, the IGL role, first and foremost, is being a leader of men, right? I think that is the most important thing that an IGL can do is lead the group, right? I've played with people that were IGLs that were actually very intelligent and had a very good understanding of the game, but they had no leadership skills. And as a result, anything that they said, even if it was right, didn't work or didn't stick with people because people didn't want to listen to them because they didn't have that sort of leadership skills, right? So,
Mm,
in my opinion, if I could describe the IGL world in like a few words, it's just somebody that can take charge, is willing to take charge, and is willing to accept blame and also be the person on the team that is always looking forward, right? And I think that's why it can be the hardest role, even if you take out the extra responsibilities of having to, come up with strats and defaults and watch other teams' demos. It's, in my opinion, the hardest part about being the IGL is having to lead people forward even in the face of adversity, because it's very easy, especially in this game that we play, to get really down on yourself when you lose and to think that there is no path forward, right? And in my opinion, that is the responsibility of the IGL, to be the one that keeps everyone moving forward, that's steering the ship, and it is as strong for the rest of the guys.
yeah.
So um, as far as just overall responsibilities, like just definitely, yeah, just being the guy that is strong, being the guy that is creating the game plans, creating the style of play for the team. I think that's another thing that's super important, is every IGL needs to have a style. It doesn't even matter what it is per se. It's just what makes you feel alive when you play the game, right? And and you have to be able to put you have to be able to translate that philosophy into a way that your team can understand, and they can start to understand how you want to play the game. And once you're able to do that, your teammates will start growing individually into the players you need them to be.
Yep.
But it starts with the IGL setting the tone from the beginning. He has to be the one to say, guys, like, this is my vision, this is where we're going, and this is how we're going to get there.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I do. I could totally relate to what you're talking about too, like creating your own style. Because
Hmm.
of fuck, there's questions in the future that go on this. I want to get into it so bad. All right,
I know, right?
we'll wait, because I got a bunch of more just like intro stuff. But that was a really good answer though. I really like that. What were the initial challenges you experienced when you first started IGLing?
The initial challenges I experienced, for me personally, I feel like maybe this is a little bit different than what other people might have experienced, because simply because when I started IGLing, I had already had a lot of experience playing Counter Strike, not necessarily competitively, but I had played a lot, and I didn't really have any real experience IGLing. But for me, when I first started IGLing, the challenge for me was getting my teammates to understand the fundamentals of the game,
Mm,
because at that time I was playing with some lower level players, and they were all good guys, good players, but they didn't understand very like basic fundamentals of Counter Strike, such as like if you get a man advantage, just hold on to your man advantage. Use flashbang, spacing, uh, use utility against ecos, know when to throw nades, know when to not throw nades in contact. Just all these little like basic fundamentals. So I would say that for me was the biggest challenge initially as an IGL, was just kind of getting the players to understand how to fundamentally play the game, because that is I don't know if maybe this is going into another question. If it is, I'm sorry,
no,
but
you're good, bro.
yeah,
Keep
yeah.
talking.
That's kind of like my philosophy as an IGL, is if all the individuals understand the fundamentals and all the individuals understand the overall philosophy of the team, then the players are going to be the one to bring you home, right? It's not
Yep.
going to be the IGL that's going to just call some insane masterclass and win every single game for you.
Yep.
You have to get your players to understand the fundamentals of the game and to react accordingly to what the other team is doing, and they're going to be the ones that are going to win you the game. And you might get the credit for that, but you know deep inside that it was them that lifted you up, right? But you
Yep.
have to start by lifting them up. So that for me was the initial challenge, was just getting people to understand the fundamentals.
Yeah, it's almost like I think at the lower levels when you first get into IGLing, you're not even like an IGL. You're almost just like an in-game coach.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you're just like, yo,
Actually,
don't
yeah,
don't peek that dude. Like
yeah, yeah.
uh,
Literally,
that
literally.
I was gonna say that, and then the other thing I was gonna say too is about your teammates are the one winning it for you. This does kind of go into a further question, but it was a realization I had relatively recently, not like super recently, but it's like for the longest time, especially early on when I started IGLing, I always thought like I had to be just this biggest brain ever, like fucking outthinking people, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's like you kind of realize that like, oh shit, like not the whole like the team's success and failures is not all reliant on you. And like that's where it kind of
Hmm.
comes into like the whole system building and stuff where it's like, you can like establish responsibilities to other players and like weird little protocols where it's like when Andrew says this, then the blank this happens and then this it's like it's a whole system being built, which
Exactly.
it's like you're not the one you're not the one like hard directing like every round, but like you're the one like, responsible for like building a system that like directs every round that involves everyone, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah,
And
like your responsibility is to give like the guidelines, like
yeah,
set the framework, and then let the players blossom within that framework. Yeah,
yeah, 100%.
100%. Yeah.
So that's the one I'm really excited to get into is like the whole system stuff because
Yeah.
I always found that really interesting. But
Mhm.
at what point? Because those are initial challenges. What point did the the IGL role became really comfortable to you, and what caused that level of comfort?
Okay, so I think I'm gonna answer that question in two prongs because I think there's actually two distinct things when it comes to the IGLing.
Okay.
So in terms of like leading the human beings, I think I was comfortable from the get-go because I had experience in leadership in the real world with real people in a real job. But as far as like becoming comfortable in the IGL role in game, I can genuinely say that I only recently started to become fully comfortable, like within the last like 6 months or so. Because for me, there was always like, there was always this kind of balance that I was trying to find in becoming, because like I'm like, I guess you could say like a fragging IGL, like not necessarily that I put up crazy numbers, but I put myself in positions to get opening picks and find information for the team. So for me, it took a very long time for me to become comfortable playing my own game while still being responsible for IGLing. Because one of the struggles that I faced for many years is like I said, being like feeling comfortable to just play my game in the game, but also be able to lead the team with calling, right?
Yeah.
So I can genuinely say that it has only recently become like fully comfortable for me. But as far as like the leadership part of it, in terms of just the people, I could honestly say that I was comfortable from the get go, and it also helped that because I came back to the game so late, I was just older than everybody. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like as like the older guy, like they're just gonna kind of naturally listen to you anyway. So
Yeah. Your
yeah,
unk.
yeah, exactly, yeah. But it definitely took like a while, and I can genuinely say that like I'm still growing. I'm still not even there yet, right? Like I'm still getting better every day, and I still have struggles just like anybody else. Uh, so yeah, it's only been recent that I've started to become really comfortable.
Would you say the comfort is strictly with that team or just comfort in general with the IGL role? Because I know for me personally, there's like comfort in like or there's like almost like confidence in my skills as an IGL, but then there's like also like another level of like confidence and comfort when you've been with a certain team for a while because you just have like this tool belt that you've built with them.
Yeah, ex-
Uh, yeah, would you say like most of the comfort came from being with a specific team for a long term, or just like recently you actually like really felt like
so
set into the IGL role in general?
I would say it's like a mix of both. It definitely, like you said, comfortability as an IGL is definitely heavily influenced by your teammates and the just the overall kind of vibe of the team, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So in that respect, yes, like it definitely matters. And this current team I'm on right now has done like a really good job of making me feel really comfortable in doing what I want to do. I think that also comes with the higher you get, the more experienced players you play with, they kind of like understand that. Um, but in terms of in terms of like the other thing of what you're saying, as far as that and the team goes, I think that was like for me just something that was an individual hurdle I had to overcome, if that makes sense. Like it
Hmm.
had nothing to do with my teammates, had nothing to do with the teams I was on. It was me becoming fully comfortable in myself, becoming fully confident in the way that I viewed the game, the way I played the game. And that for me was something that I struggled with for a long time because I can sometimes get very down on myself and start to like doubt myself in that sense. So for me, it was a long, hard battle against myself to just start to become fully comfortable in myself and believe that the way I see the game, the way I want to play the game is good enough to beat any team, right? And it definitely it took a long time because you know this, you compete, you've been playing too. Like sometimes you go through stretches of like really poor results and it can really start to it can get to you, especially as an IGL, and you can
Yeah.
think like, man, like am I just not good enough, like are the calls I'm making just bad, these teams are just better than me, they're smarter than me and all that. And I think it's just like that is what that's a part of that comfortability, is just having the strength to believe in yourself and having the strength to believe that I do know what I'm doing. I can do this. Maybe I'm not finding the success instantly, but it will come if I keep working hard and I keep believing in that. So I don't know if that really answered your question or not,
No,
but
no, that definitely did. I was gonna
mhm,
say too, to touch on that, um, talking about like the confidence that you kind of need. I feel like that's like a really big thing with IGLing and CS because of like how little IGLs like interact with each other, because like
yeah,
you don't want to give away your play, like you don't want to show how you play, and
yeah,
so it's like really easy just to be like, you're just like almost every IGL, like there's a jungle and it's almost like every IGL is just carving their own path through this jungle, and you don't know
yeah,
anyone else's path, and you're like, bro, am I even going the right direction? Like, are these shit calls? Like there's times where I'm like, bro, am I like, do people like, am I just on a whole like shittier level than everyone else? Like, because no one ever like talks about
right,
IGLing and like what they do, so it's really hard to compare yourself and actually see where
yeah.
you're truly at.
I actually think that's maybe this is also touching on another topic in the future, but I like that analogy, by the way. Like everyone's in a jungle and the IGLs are the ones just carving their way through, and everyone else
Yeah.
is like behind one of these IGLs just coming through this path with them. But I actually do think that that is like, and I mean, I understand it, right? Like I'm not maybe I'm not the guy that seeks out interaction with other people that much, but I do think that is sort of like an issue in the NA scene. Is I think that like there's too much gatekeeping, like it like I think that if more higher level IGLs would be more willing to work with other people and like answer questions and help some of the lower level players out, I think that it could do really good for our scene. But I do think that I do think there is an ego issue in the scene where some of these higher level IGLs they just won't give you the time of day. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not their prerogative. I'm not blaming them. I understand it, but I do think that that is something for the future generation. That if the future generation could really understand that and work on that and help each other instead of stifle each other, then I think our region could come back to the level it used to be. We could start to compete with Europe and even Asia and all that, because we got some insane players here, man. Like
Yeah.
we really do have some insane talent in this region. And I think it starts with the IGLs, like you said, right? It starts with the guys carving their way through the jungle, and instead of just carving like your own path, right? Like help each other out, right? Maybe we can actually create a thriving scene that can actually start to compete internationally again, right? So that's just kind of like my 2 cents on that whole thing. But I like that analogy though, and I
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
think that kind of is like that does kind of sum it up, like in terms of the path of an IGL, like the journey, I guess you could say.
yeah. Because like maybe you get like some advice, and someone's like, "Oh, go north for 50 paces," but then after that, like you're on your own. Like there's no guide to like mastering the IGL role because I mean, it kind of sucks, but it does make sense too because of like how high the skill ceiling can be with IGLing. Because there's
Mhm.
so many things. Like you got to master all the individual skills that everyone else has to master. On top of that, analytical skills like strategic skills, and then you have to go into like team, leadership skills, emotional
Mhm.
skills, problem solving skills. Like
Problem solving, yeah.
there's so much like the skill ceiling is so high, so it's like it makes sense why there's not much of a path, but it would help if everyone were to discuss this together because it's like I can see why people don't too because you're competing against each other on all these
Yeah,
local
I get it.
tournaments,
Yeah,
but it's like,
I
dude,
completely
like,
get it.
bro, I'm like NA till I die, bro. Like I'm a patriot. Like if we could just
Hmm.
like cooperate and like shit on Europe, like that would be such a better feeling than like winning the local frag. Like I want to win
Yeah,
the major
no,
for NA. Like that
no, for sure, man.
patriot, bro.
I could,
But
I could, I could not agree more, honestly.
yeah. Uh, so moving on to like the levels of skill with an IGL, if you were to like briefly, um, not like a tier list, but like yeah, a brief like level one is this is the first level IGL. You copy pro strats or something. Like level two, like what would you say are like the levels of mastery when it comes to the skills of the IGL?
Are you talking about strictly just in game?
Um, sure, yeah, because yeah, it can be
Yeah,
the
okay,
answers
yeah.
can go
So like,
for forever, if
yeah,
not.
yeah, true. So yeah, like strictly in game, I would have to say yeah, like first level is just kind of like just understanding basic Counter Strike. You know what I mean? Like take map control, execute, um, use flash for your teammates, stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like that's probably like
The
the first level
basics.
is just yeah, just being able to understand the basics of the game. Being able to understand like the basics of how the opponents are going to set up their rounds, so you can kind of call around that. Uh, I think the next level off of that is maybe like starting to maybe like copy some like pro strats, like just say, okay, yeah, I like this strat, and just kind of tell your team, okay, you do this, you do this, you do this. I think at that level, you don't really know why they're doing it yet, and you don't really know like when to call that. You're just like, oh, that was a nice strat, and I want to do it, and you just call it, and it can work or not work based off that. Um, I think after that is when you start, like the next level is when you start to kind of understand defaulting and how individuals can dictate the rounds based off the default. So you're more playing to gather information and then making a decision off of that, if that makes sense. So like you're relying on the information of your individuals for you to make a good call. Um, and I think that's when at that level is when you could start to have like your own strats, like maybe your own little like micro plays here and there, like for example, just as like a random example, like maybe on Mirage, that they're not really fighting for mid control, so you send like two guys underpass and they take their time and they throw like top con smoke, molly and con, and then you boost in window, like stuff like that, just like little micro plays from that level. And then I think past that is when it starts to kind of like all meld into one, and it just becomes about how good you are at this next level, if that makes sense. And that is when it comes down to, in my opinion, adaptation. Because I think that is like the final level, maybe not the final level, but definitely like the highest level of IGLing, is being able to adapt to what the other team is doing and create a solution on the fly or through use of things that you have gone over in practice. So that's the level where you start to, instead of just like copying this strat or saying like, oh, we do this default, that's when you start to go into practice and you talk about like, hey guys, we just played these scrims against these teams and they were abusing us this way, right? Or they were countering our default this way. So we can now counter that through this. And then like as the example you're using earlier about the tool belt, that's when you start to add all these different tools to your belt, all these little micro solutions to things that they are doing, right? Like, okay, yeah, they're doing this, so we have this play to counter that. Or they're just, Mirage, for example, they're just heavily fighting mid every single round. Let's just go out A. Like, just don't even worry about defaulting, right? Like, is, I think that is kind of like the benchmark, I would say, of like a lower tier IGL and someone that's starting to understand the game at a higher level, is understanding that you don't always have to do the step 1, step 2, step 3 that people think you have to do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah, like you definitely have to, like, you have to have that ability and you have to understand that part of the game, especially at the lower levels, because at the lower levels, just doing that basic stuff will win you most games. But getting to that next level is understanding when to break the rules of the game,
Yeah.
right? Like, but you have to master the rules first to be able to break them. Um, so, in my opinion, that is like the highest level of IGLing. Is okay. I don't care about XYZ. I don't care about this default. I don't care about the fact that they might know this because we didn't throw this smoke here or there. I care about how are we going to win based off what they are doing, right? It doesn't, because at the end of the day, Counter-Strike is a sandbox. You can do whatever you want, genuinely, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you really can. You could sit in T spawn for a minute and 50 seconds and wait, and then just run out. You could do whatever you want, and it
Yeah.
doesn't. If it works, it works. So I think that is kind of like uh that is like the final hurdle, is just knowing how to just win the game and not worry about going through all the steps that IGLs are quote unquote supposed to call every round. Oh, we have to do this, we have to do this. Like, no, sometimes you can just go, sometimes you can just go, or sometimes you can just wait, right? Like, it comes down to how are we going to approach this round and how are we going to win it, period.
Yeah.
So I genuinely think that is like the final level of the game, is just knowing when to break the rules.
That makes sense. It's
Hmm.
interesting too how you're like building up the levels and just starting off with like mastering yourself and then like understanding your enemy. I
Hmm.
remember like when I first started getting into IGLing, bro. I read Sun Tzu Art of War,
Yeah.
and
That's dope. Yeah.
one of the quotes he said was like, if you don't know yourself and you don't know your enemy, you'll lose 100 battles, and then it's
Hmm.
like if you know yourself but you don't know your enemy, you'll win 50 of those 100 battles, and it's like, and if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you'll win all 100 of those battles, something like that. Where
Yeah,
it's
exactly. Yeah.
like you need to know yourself and them, and like and then you solve the puzzle like with all the chaos within that. But it's like you have to master like knowing both, because
Exactly.
some people are really good at reading the other team, but they don't know themselves. They don't have their own style built, and then some people have their own style, but they don't know how to read the other team and adapt.
Hmm.
And
And I think another, like, to just kind of caveat on that point, I think another thing that maybe some lower level IGLs don't understand, or maybe not don't understand, but don't know, I should say, is that, like you said, you can't skip those steps, right? You can't
no,
just go
no,
straight to breaking the rules, and you can't just go straight to following all the rules. Like, you have to gain the experience step by step by step to understand how to do that, right? Like,
yeah,
do you understand how to know yourself and how to know your opponent? You can't just go, like, you can't just be like an open IGL and watch the other team's demo and say, okay, guys, they do this, this, and that, and then just make your whole game plan around just countering what you saw in this demo, right?
yeah,
Because half the time they're probably not even going to do that again anyway, because they're just an open team and they probably don't even know what they're doing. They're just doing random stuff. And the other half of it is that if you are just completely playing to counter your opponent and you haven't mastered yourself as a team yet, then you're not going to know what to do if the thing doesn't go the way that you thought it was going to, and you're just going to lose, right? Like, I actually made that mistake a long time ago
same,
when I
yeah.
was, yeah,
You're
when I
bringing me
was playing.
flashbacks, bro.
Yeah, literally, like, I remember this match. It was like my first season in main, and I was IGLing, and we were playing some team on Nuke. I don't even remember, But like I was opping at the time. I was opping and IGLing, and I remember watching their demo, and I was like, "Oh, these guys, they just wrap outside every round. Like they just throw the mini smoke and they try to wrap hell every round." So instead of just playing the game, I was like, "I'm just gonna post my op in hell every single round, right?" Guess how many times they wrapped hell that game?
0.
0.
Yeah.
And we got smacked because I was telling guys they're gonna wrap hell every round. Don't do that. Stay for upper this and that. And then they
Yeah.
just took secret for free, and we were just losing every single round. And I remember just thinking like, I'm never gonna watch another team's demo again. Like I'm never doing this again. That was awful. Like I suck. Like dude, I'm just gonna literally play the game at all times now. So it's definitely like you can't skip any of these steps. Like you really can't. um, it's a process that you have to go through, and if you want to be an IGL, you got to be willing to go through that process, and you got to understand that there's going to be a lot of downs, but there's going to be a lot of ups too, right?
Yep.
There's going to be a lot of progress and good things, but uh, you can't disrespect the game. Like that, you have to respect the game, and the game will tell you what you need to do next, if that makes sense. Um, so yeah,
No, that's a good
you,
answer.
you just brought me that memory back. I haven't thought about that for a while now.
Same, man. Like I remember like in open, like I'm like I forgot it was something on Inferno. I'm like, oh, they always do this, and then we every round we started to like counter that and just wasted so much time. Like we got stomped. It
Yeah.
was stupid. So I honestly haven't touched anti-stratting since, but that's mainly because
Hmm.
of time. Because like I'm like I'd rather aim train instead of watching the main team's
Yeah.
demo. Like fuck that. Like
No,
we're
literally.
probably gonna beat them anyways, you know. Um,
Exactly.
but
Hmm.
so shifting from the IGL role, still associated with the IGL role, what should an IGL expect of his players?
Okay, so I think that is definitely dependent on the IGL, definitely, because like I say, everybody has a different style. Everybody has a different style of leadership. Everyone has like a different expectation of their team. Uh, for me, I would say like that. For me, the thing that I expect the most from my players is number one, having like a positive attitude. You know what I mean? Like that to me personally is the most
Fundamental.
important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I look for in teammates, because you can have four of just the most insane players, but if the environment is bad, if the mood is bad, you guys are gonna suck.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if you have Simple and Nico and Zayu on your team and they all hate each other and they have bad attitudes, you're gonna suck.
100%.
So that's like the first thing I expect from my players is just having like a good attitude and like willingness to learn and listen, kind of is as a part of that as well. And then second of all, just individual competency, right? Like at the end of the day, we can't escape the fact that this is like a performance based game. And if you are not able to hold your own, then I don't want you on my team. It might sound harsh, right? But that is just the truth. Like we're trying to be the best team we can be. We're trying to reach the highest level we can. And if you're making fundamental mistakes, if you can't shoot back, if you're just throwing consistently and making like really bad decisions and stuff, then there is no place for you on a high level team, right? So if anyone's out there listening that is a player, like that is definitely something like focus on the decision making, because like I think for most IGLs, with the exception of like a few, maybe just like really cracked, insane type of aimers, like that's gonna be like your ticket into the higher levels is having good decision making skills. Because I think for me, like that's what I really look for in a player. Like I can forgive maybe a slight lack of mechanical talent if somebody is always making the right decision, right? Because this game is not all about aim. And once you get to a certain level, everybody can aim, like literally. So it just comes down to who's making the least mistakes and who's making the best decisions. Um, and then the last thing I would say that I'd expect is just players that are willing to go through the process and understand that the IGL is not always going to make the right calls. Sometimes they're going to straight up lose the game off their calls. Sometimes they're going to win the game off their calls, and they have to be willing to accept the style that the IGL wants to play, and they have to be willing to believe in it and buy into whatever system, whatever message the IGL is trying to get across, right? So,
Yeah.
um, and then lastly, just people that can just have fun. You know what I mean? Like genuinely, at the end of the day, we are playing a video game. We all want to be the best we can. We all want to win. We all want to lift that major trophy. We all have those dreams, but at the end of the day, it is just a game. And I expect people to have fun and not like have a stick up their ass when they're playing all the time, right? Because like nobody wants to be around that, like
Yeah. Yeah.
nobody wants to be around people that just have a stick up their ass all the time and are just constantly complaining about things and stuff like that. Like it does no good. All it does is just make people not want to be there, and it's just never going to be good, right? Like there's definitely a time and place for constructive criticism, and those things need to be discussed internally, but there's also a line, like there's a line of, okay, we did this wrong, maybe I didn't like the way you were calling this and that, and then there's like, you're horrible, we all suck, this is horrible, I hate my life, blah blah. You know how it is. I'm sure you've had experiences like that. So
Yeah.
uh yeah, those are to me what I expect out of my players for sure.
That's honestly, that's a really interesting answer, and I agree with it 100%. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised by that who aren't IGLs, because I think a lot of people have this idea in mind that fuck how I act. Like I just want to, like, if I play good, I should be on a team. And
Hmm.
I actually was writing down stuff that you were saying because I wanted to comment on this and like have like a really thought out response. I think
Hmm.
it's funny how some people see the whole vibe aspect of a team like in players, because the first thing you mentioned was uh like, are they was it like not emotions, but like the positive attitude. That's what it was.
Yeah.
The first thing
Yeah.
was mentioned was positive attitude, and some people see that as a non-essential, which is just, it's just shocking to me, because like it's a psychological fact that like once you tilt or once you have a certain level of emotion, like your prefrontal cortex shuts off and you can't think properly. Like your logical side of your brain just shuts off and you can't think properly. So if you have a team of five insane players, but they all tilt 24/7, they all hate each other, they're not
Yeah.
insane anymore. Like it's just a fact that they're not insane anymore. It's a psychological fact. You can't avoid it.
Literally.
And it's like that's something I realized with when it came to like building a team, that is 100% an essential, is the positive attitude, because if there is no positive attitude, you are fucking up everyone's brains. Like
Hmm.
we can't play anymore. Like it's a done fact.
Yeah,
Um
I couldn't agree more. Like I think that, like you said, a lot of people have that misunderstanding that, like, okay, if I just become the best player possible, it doesn't matter. Like if I like nothing else matters except how good I am in the game. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, like, you're going to, like, if you have actual aspirations in the game, like, it's one thing if you just want to play for fun and, like, whatever, just I'm not going to sit here and condone toxicity, but like, if you are just playing for fun, then it doesn't really matter. You're just playing with your friends, you're solo queuing,
yeah.
whatever. But if you do have actual aspirations in this game to play at a high level, I think more people need to understand that you're not going to get those opportunities even if you are incredible at the game,
Yeah.
because nobody's going to want to play with you, like these high level IGLs that have a lot of experience and have a way they want to play, they're not going to want to deal with you. Like they don't have time for that anymore, like I don't have time to sit here and like babysit people, you know what I'm saying? Like genuinely, like I am the type of guy that, like, I will talk to people, right? I'll try to help them. I'll do everything in my power to try to help this person get with the program. But at the end of the day, refusing to if you're refusing to be a person that can just work within a team, then you're not going to get those opportunities. And on
Yep.
top of that, you're going to just stunt yourself not only in the game but in life too, because you're just going to be upset that, oh, I was so good but I didn't get this opportunity, this and that, and you're going to blame everything. And I think what a lot of these younger players don't realize is that in the real world, it's going to be even worse. Like, actually, like in the real world, if you aren't the type of person they're looking for or whatever, like that, they'll just fire you. You know,
Yeah.
like they don't care. They're go find the other 10,000 people that have a good attitude. Maybe you are the best, smartest worker there, but you have a terrible attitude. They don't care. They'll cut you like that, and they'll bring in somebody else. So I think it's just super important and super underrated for up and coming players to like understand that, right? Like, work on your mental, have a positive mental, do things outside of the game. I'm not saying you can't dedicate your life to the game, right? If you want to go pro, if you want to be ECL, if you want to play these high levels, you got to really dedicate yourself to the game. But make time for other things in life, right? Make time to spend time with friends and family, make time to get outside, and because that's what's going to give you that perspective, and it's going to actually make you even better in the game,
Yep.
because you're not just going to just be locked into this e-world 24/7. And it's just very easy. We've all been through it. It's very easy to have your mental slip when you're just locked into the e-world 24/7, because all you see is just the game. You're on Twitter, you're comparing yourself to this person, comparing to this. You see everyone talking about this team, I was doing this, and like you're not even making any time for yourself. So it's like, no wonder your mental is bad, right? No wonder you're slipping mentally and being toxic to people and having a poor attitude. So to like caveat on what you were saying, like, yeah, I definitely think that like more people should understand this, right? Like, if you want to get to that high level, you want to go pro, you want to leave a legacy in the game, you got to treat it like a real job in that sense. And in a real job in the real world, there's no time for people with bad attitudes, because
Yep.
they do not care, and that they will instantly move on to the next person, and that's it. And then you're going to be the one left there bitter and miserable because your opportunities were gone, and the only person you had to blame is yourself, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Also going back to your answers, I thought it was very interesting how all the answers you had for what you look for in a player had nothing to do with like a unique trait or a unique skill. It was like basic human fundamentals, like
hmm
uh positive attitude, loyalty to a team, enjoyment of the game, and then basic Counter-Strike fundamentals. You just got to hold your own. But it's interesting that you said those are all those factors when you look for a player, because someone might have pitfalls and insane like skills within the game, and as long as they have those fundamentals mastered, like any IGL, I feel like this is just like mastery of the IGL skills. Like an IGL can take any five, well, not exactly any five, but you can work with like pretty much any type of player and build like a whole new team with those five, as long as they have those fundamentals you know
hmm
um
literally.
like Kerrigan, like I mean, he's been to how many different rosters and brought them all to like
hmm
top five teams. um
Literally, you can take players that like you can genuinely take players that maybe aren't on paper the best individual players, and if you get them to all buy into that philosophy, and you get everyone to think positively about things and have a positive attitude and just worry about moving forward, then you can take players that maybe aren't as skilled individually, and you can beat teams with players that are more skilled than you.
yep.
Genuinely, like you really can, because so much of this game, it is a team game, and so much of it comes down to that, just the mental of everyone and like the energy that you're putting out there. So yeah, I think that's like super important. I think that's a really good example that you brought up with Kerrigan, because like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
something that he's done his whole career, right? Is just take, I mean, obviously now like it's kind of the pinnacle, so now he's playing with like the best individuals. So but that, you could just say that is his like reward, because he put in how many years of working hard, how many years of playing with lesser players, getting cut from teams, getting scapegoated, and he never gave up, and he believed in his message, right, of having that positive attitude and looking forward. And then now look where he's at, right?
Yeah, it
Literally,
paid
the guy
off.
just, it paid off for him, right? And now he's on top of the world, literally.
Hold on, I got an alarm going off on my phone. Well, sorry, 1 second, I gotta turn this thing off.
No worries, bro.
um no, yeah, though, yeah, I want to touch on that topic more, just about like the mastering leadership skills by like using your whatever you have and like building that up. But we don't have all day, so I want to move on to these other questions because
Sure,
these
sure,
are
sure.
also really interesting to me as well. So if you were to, so this kind of goes back to the jungle analogy, right? Like it was pretty hard for me to like write out an example of this question because I'm also in the same jungle. I don't know shit about other IGLs. Like so far it's like all I know about IGLing is what I've seen from demos, which is not even IGLing, it's just strat calling, and then what I've
Hmm.
learned and from other players and in game, you know. And I was gonna
Hmm.
say if you were to label different styles of IGLs that you know of or have played with, like what different styles have you seen that like maybe you ran
Hmm.
into the jungle with, that are out there that are like some options for people. So like a couple examples I put, I don't even know if these are the best examples, like lurk IGL, op IGL, pure analytic IGL. I don't know if these are
Hmm.
the best examples because those are more just roles within the game, which
Right.
kind of goes into the answer as well, like what role you're playing while you're IGLing, but also like the style of IGL. Like I guess another example would be like I think I've heard before that MSL was like a super flow charty with his
Uh-huh.
defaults, just flow charts. Like if this, then this, if this, then this, if this, and he was super analytical. Um,
Right.
like what kind of styles would you say are out there for IGLs that people can pick up on? And then if roles kind of go with it, you can answer roles as well. But
Hmm.
that's kind of the question, if that makes
Uh,
sense.
yeah, that does make sense. Yeah. So I think like different styles of IGLing. I think there is like to start with, you have like your micromanaging styles of IGLing, right? Like you have IGLs that like to dictate every move of every round, right? And you don't want your players doing anything unless you give them to say so, right? And I should say really quick before I get into this that there is no right way, right? Like all of these different styles can work. It just depends on the person and the team that you build around it. Um, but I'm sure some people might say that like, oh, this style is better or this style is better. Like I personally don't believe that any style is better.
I agree.
I think again, it just depends on who you are, your team, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, so I think you have your micromanaging IGLs that like you go into an offline server with your team and you go over every single move that you want to make. You say this is how I want to react every single time. This player, your role is to always hold here, or like you're basically dictating every single point of the round. And most times I would say like most times the players that are like that are more supportive type of IGLs where they'll like kind of float around the map and maybe not really go for aggressive picks. They'll kind of gather the information from their teammates, then they'll make a call, they'll throw grenades, and they'll kind of be more supportive. uh, you have your op IGLs, like you said, which is a little bit rare these days. It's kind of falling out of fashion, but there are still some left, and it's still viable if you know how to make it work. Um, I would say that the op IGL is pretty similar to like the micromanaging style because like that maybe the only difference being that every now and then you go for some aggressive picks to try to open up the round for your team, and it makes it easier for you to make a call if you get a 4v5. But most times the op IGL is also kind of just in the back, supporting, throwing grenades, directing their team here, directing their team there. Um, you have maybe like the more aggressive IGLs, right? So like that's like how like my personal style is like you have a style of being the guy that's always like the spearhead of the round, right? Like whatever it is we're doing, I'm there, I'm in the front, and like I'm getting information for the team, or I'm entering onto a site or entering part of map control, and I'm making calls based off what I'm seeing, and I'm adapting based on the way they are reacting to what I am doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think with that style, like so for me, for example, it does really depend heavily on your individuals taking initiative because as a more aggressive IGL that is trying to create space for the team, you need players that can take initiative. You need players that can say, okay, I'm just gonna say my like John MDS, whatever. He just pushed outside and maybe he got 1 for 1, but he called okay, there's a guy in secret and there's a guy in big garage, right? So you need players that have the understanding. Okay, that just happened. Okay. Go out A, and they need to be able to do that on their own, right? Like there are times that you as an IGL in that type of role when you're dead can make a call, especially if your team was unable to react through maybe they got blocked by the other team or somebody just got picked off or something like that. And that's when you can kind of create calls based off of that. But you need players that can think for themselves in that type of system, right? And like that's my personal system, is having players that can think for themselves, make their own decisions, and feel comfortable playing their game, doing what they want, right? Like that is my personal style, where I want my players to feel like they have freedom, right? The only thing that I require of them, which I tell everyone from the beginning, is like, look, I want you to play your game. I want you to do what makes you feel comfortable. But if I make a call, you listen.
Yeah.
That's it, right? If this round I'm like, no, nobody do anything because I know what they're going to do and I want to do this, then you better listen. But the trade off to that, the balance is that through a lot of these defaults, like I encourage my players, like, make a play, take some initiative, right? If you know you have this skill, don't wait to be told what to do, go do it. And we can make, like, because that to me, right, and again, this is just my opinion, but that to me is the hardest style for teams to play against, because you are creating the rounds as you go in the mid rounds, and you are allowing your players to use their individual abilities to win the round, and you trust them to make a good decision based off what's happening, right? There's definitely a time and place to play super structured and do this and that, but you need these players to be able to play confidently and play their game. And then I think like maybe the last style, I guess, if you will, of that is the hyper structured IGL, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, which is like, it's not necessarily the micromanaging one. That's kind of just saying like, because I would say like a micromanaging IGL is a type that's calling stuff like from spawn plays every single round, right? Like every single round, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, and okay, now you do this, you do this, you do this, and it's dictated from spawn. And then the hyper structured IGLs are the one that's like, okay, we must default this way every time. We need to take map control this way every time. We need to be super careful, and then we will go into some sort of team play together, right? And that's like uh, the IGLs, and I think it's like in that sort of IGLing, like it's pretty variable, like the role you want to play, right? So like just as an example, like Stanislaw is like that's sort of like the way he calls, right? But he's more on like the lurky style,
Hmm.
where like he will be very structured in what he's calling, but he's kind of the one like lurking around, like being more slow, being more careful, trying to find gaps to help his team out. And again, like, Stanislaw is a great IGL, obviously. uh there is no like right answer, like it
Yeah.
just it's funny because somebody was actually asking me about this the other day, and what I told him is that, in my opinion, in order to find the style of play that you want to play as an IGL, you need to sit down and you need to think about the game, and you think about, what about this game makes me feel something, right? Like, how, when I play Counter-Strike, what makes me feel something, right? Like, why did I start playing this game in the first place, right? And if for you that is because you want to structure every point of the round and be this like super util heavy team that does everything perfectly, then that's great, do that, right? What makes you feel, for me, what makes me feel something is playing aggressive, right? Finding entries and setting my team up to succeed, right? Like, for me, that's like the best feeling, man. It's like if I can go somewhere, maybe get an entry or two, die, and then watch my team just piece together the round and play cohesively and close that round out. That for me is like, it just makes me feel like so happy.
Yeah.
Genuinely. Yeah, like I get so hyped for my teammates, and I'm just like, I love watching them succeed. Right. So like that for me is what makes me feel alive in the game. It's what keeps me going. It's what feeds the fire of the passion, if you will, is
Yeah.
seeing my teammates grow and succeed. And again, that's just me. It can literally be whatever. It's just about what makes you feel alive when you play the game. Because if you try to copy a style because you think this team is really good and you try to copy their style, but you're playing it and you just feel dead inside when you're doing it, like it's like, oh yeah, this is like what we're supposed to do, but you don't you're not happy playing it, like you don't like this like style of play or whatever, then it's not going to work, even if it is really good for this team. Like here's an example, like Virtus Pro, right? Virtus Pro has a very unique style, the Jame IGL, the hyper slow contact map control, do everything, push pull, take forever to do anything, right? That's obviously a great style, but I think you could say genuinely that most IGLs could not call that style because like they either lack the patience or they don't think about the game the same way. And like for me, for example, like like playing like that, I would just be like, man, like I hate this. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so it's like it's not gonna work, right? And that doesn't mean that what he's doing is wrong. I respect the hell out of James, respect the hell out of this guy for that's his style. That's what he believes in. That's what makes him feel something, right? It works for him. So when it comes to all those styles, like that is definitely what I would say to anyone that's kind of like trying to figure out what their style is just think about what makes you happy when you play the game. I think it really is that simple. Like, what makes you feel something playing Counter Strike? Because if you're not feeling something, then what's the point? Like
Yeah.
you're just pouring hours into this game, feeling dead inside. Like, then what's even the point of playing then? It's supposed to be for fun. It's supposed to give you passion. Um, so yeah, I think those are, at least from what I've kind of experienced, like the different styles of IGLing.
That's
And
oh
sorry,
yeah, yeah.
sorry. Yeah, I just remember. And then there's like the other style of experience is kind of like the Brazilian style, which is like super, super, super communication based, where it's like the IGL is kind of just like giving like a general guideline of what to do, and the players are like hyper communicative, right? Like if
Mm.
you've ever played against like really good Brazilian teams, it almost seems like it can be very frustrating to play against because it almost seems like they're like disrespecting you, just like random like individuals just peeking things and like taking duels. But the more you play against it, the more you start to understand that it's actually very together, and it all comes down to their communication. So
Mm.
like they are saying like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and then someone next to them's like, okay, bro said he's gonna do this, so I'm gonna do this now to support him, right? And then another guy hears that on this side of the map, okay, they're pushing here, whatever. Then I'm gonna play passive, I'm gonna block the. So it's like it's very it's how do I say it?
Like
It's
on the
like
fly, like
it's on the fly, yeah, and there's not necessarily one guy that's kind of dictating everything, but they're all like working together, right? And there's just that one voice that's kind of like the alpha voice, I guess you could say, that like, okay, like he'll be the one to decide if he can call it off, or he can be like, yeah, do it, or he can just say nothing and also make his play off of what's happening, right? So
yeah.
um and again, that is like that's another really strong style, but if you're going to play that style, then you need very vocal people on
Yep.
your team.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can't have players that just don't really say anything or be waiting to tell what to do. Because if you try to play that style, then it's just going to be like people are just going to be peaking randomly, and none of it's going to make sense, and you're just going to lose. Like, but the Brazilians make it work because they are talking to each other at all times. They are saying everything to each other, and they're listening to each other. Uh, but yeah, so those are kind of like the styles that I would say that I've experienced in that way.
That was a really extensive answer. I guess if you were to put it together for like a utilitarian, like how to use this, like how to use this. I guess for people out there who are listening, and you can agree or disagree with this. Probably find out what style you prefer, and then when you look for players, you look how they fit within that style.
Yes,
Because it's kind of weird like joining a team as an IGL because the way you want to play might not fit that style of players. You know,
exactly.
like how you're saying the Brazilian style, like everyone needs to talk, but you can still make a team work where people don't talk that much if you have like really flushed out defaults with
Yes,
a lot of like rehearsal. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's like if you're in the situation of building a team, find out what style you like and then find people who fit that style. And then if you're in the situation of joining a team and you have to make it work, then you got to like switch up how you play to fit that team style. You gotta
Exactly.
get used to those players. Because
Exactly.
I guess like an example of this is like because the old style that I wanted to play, I always loved the structure, bro. I love the structure. Like
Yeah.
I love just
Mm-hmm.
outbraining the other team and be like,
Oh
"Fuck you, I'm smarter." Like and
yeah. Yeah.
the team I was on recently split apart last season, so I was doing tryouts for other teams, and this one team I tried out for, bro, like they were so talkative. So talkative.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like the style I would wanted to play before would not work with them. Like I'm hindering them. Like if I were to like try and make it way too structured. And so like in my head, I was already preparing like if I were to join this team, like I'm gonna have to play differently. We're gonna have to play like almost like that Brazilian style where everyone's talking and they're almost dictating the pace of the round, not the pre-rehearsed defaults. Because when you have those pre-rehearsed defaults, like these guys are already vocal, like might as well use their strengths, Like you can
Exactly.
you can adapt with a style of play like that way better. And by forcing them to stick to certain protocols every round, like you're just hindering them. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, just like to put those together, it's like if you're starting a team, find out what style you like, find people that fit it, and if you're joining a team, find out the style that they would fit best in, and then you have to kind of adapt for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. No, I couldn't agree more. And that's another just a challenge of the IGL role, right? It's like I think for me personally, I would say like if you're like a lower level IGL and you're trying to make your way up, I think that your best bet is to unless you okay, so let me say like I think your best bet is to choose your style and stick to it and find players that are going to support that
Yep.
unless you are a lower level player that gets a very like unique opportunity. Like you get a very
Yeah.
unique opportunity to play with players that are maybe a lot better than you or a lot more experienced, but something about you they like that they want you to call for them, and then you can like learn from them and
Yeah.
adapt to them and also help it to build your style. But if you're definitely just you got that machete and you're chopping your way through the jungle, like I think the best thing to do is to just like find your style and don't make compromises for people, right? Like or let me say, you can make compromises, but don't sacrifice yourself for others, right? I think that's for me something that took a long time for me to do because I think I'm a very like sacrificial person by nature, and I kind of had to learn to stop sacrificing parts of myself for other people because not only was it hindering like my growth as an IGL and as a player, it was hindering our growth as a team because I was conceding too many things to people
Yeah.
instead of saying like, no, like this is what we're gonna do, and you can get with this, or you can go to a different team. Like
Yeah.
this is how I'm gonna run this shit. So, uh, but yeah, I think it's a good way to put it though, for sure.
Yeah. Also, just one more thing to touch on the styles too. I
Hmm.
think if people are out there struggling, reaching that next level, like, because the thing with styles is that it's really easy to categorize, like, how, like, categorize styles. But like, I was talking about this with Kojimo too in the opping video. It's like it's not an MMO. Like, you're not some fucking assassin. Like, you're not stuck to like, oh,
Yeah,
we always just talk and we win rounds. Like, a lot of the times all the styles merge together. Like for the best teams, they
it's
merge
true.
everything
Yeah,
together, and then they put more emphasis on one. But it's like if you are struggling and you're plateauing with like your current way of playing, you might need to like branch out into like the other styles to like help have a more well-rounded game. Like for a personal example is like I always love the structured style, and one of the like last talks I had with the previous team was about like player freedoms, like doing things outside the default. And like the compromise that we came to was like we still stick to the default, but like if you want to like make a play, like it's only like you have to self advocate for that. And it's like we're
right.
we're both getting what we want. I'm getting, you know, the expectations of the default met, like where I don't have to overthink about like what's going on. I can just know what's gonna happen unless you say otherwise, and then you jump off the default, and that's where the freedoms come
Hmm.
in. Where then you're tapping into that Brazilian style. You know what I mean? Like they
Yeah,
all merge or if you're playing that Brazilian style and then you see like a lack of cohesion, maybe you can like set a couple rehearsed defaults that you can branch off of as well. It's like they all merge together for the most
Right.
part for people listening if they're like newer IGLs. Um, but you definitely want to have more emphasis on one, because if you try and do them all equally, like you're getting nowhere. Like
Yeah.
you had to have a certain way that you enjoy playing.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really great point. Honestly, I'm glad you said that because I didn't even think about that.
Oh,
So
really?
no, yeah, no, I didn't think to say that. I should say like because
Yeah.
that is part of my growth as well as an IGL is like you said, being able to blend these different styles, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, for example, like something that I had to really focus on and add to my repertoire was the structure, right? Like the structure, like executing, using nades, having these structured defaults and stuff like that. Because for the longest time, I was just like a purely just free flowing, make some plays, like play super chaotic style of CS, and like that is still who I am. That's still the core of our philosophy and gameplay. But that's something that I had to learn to add over time. Is like we got to have this ability because I started to hit this wall with some of these teams, some of these top level teams. And like, we're able to like, maybe we even have a round where like, I'm able to get this double kill entry because I just peeked them and killed them. But these higher level teams are going to react well. If you don't make a good follow-up play off of that, then they're going to react and they're still going to win that round because they're not going to give you another mistake. And if you don't have the ability to then make like a solid play from there, like, okay, we get these injuries, but now we go together and we use the grenades and we space well. If you start kind of just going off on your own and, trying, these teams will punish you like
Yeah.
100%. So I'm really glad you said that, and because I didn't even think to say that, and that is actually a super super viable point and just part of the whole journey of being an IGL. So
Part of the jungle.
yeah, yeah, part of the jungle. Yes, sir.
uh,
Yes, sir.
Quick question: How much time do you have? Because we're going over an hour right now.
I got nothing to do today, man. I
Oh,
got
for
plenty of
real?
time. We can go for as long as you want.
For real? Okay,
Yeah,
I do have to do stuff.
yeah, that's fine.
I'm gonna start speeding up a bit, asking
Yeah,
some
no
questions
worries.
that I find more important. Because dude, this document goes on for a while. We're not even halfway there.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me get into the stuff I wanted to talk about.
Sure,
Um,
man. Sure.
so I'm gonna let me highlight the stuff that I don't think I'm gonna be able to cover today. Are you down for a part two, by the way?
Yeah,
Possibly.
sure, man. Sure.
Thank
This
you,
is
bro.
actually a lot of fun, bro.
Yeah, I'm having fun too, man. This is a sick talk. So we already asked that one. Let me move on. So yeah, coming into the styles, what do you what's your stance on like secondary callers? Like, because that also plays in the styles as well. I guess you can say like a Brazilian team would have 5 secondary callers, in a sense. But like, how do you view secondary calling, and like what are their responsibility and expected responsibilities and duties?
Yeah, so from my experience, like, so for example, like with my team, right, like it's very important to have a secondary color because, like I said, I'm playing really aggressive. I'm trying to open things up, take map control, et cetera, et cetera. And it's very important to have somebody in my system that's a little bit more passive and can understand what's happening around the map, understand like what I'm doing, and make like a secondary call off of that, right? And like I personally rely on that a lot in terms of like mid rounding, right? I think for me, my personal strength as an IGL is kind of like the macro feel of what to do round by round, and I need players around me that can come up with solid mid rounds and execute correctly because I'm the type of guy where like I know I know what to do, but sometimes I won't call the best way to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like I
Oh,
know what we should be doing.
yeah.
Yeah, but like maybe I'll call like a poor way to do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like so that's why I think that for me, for example, it's super important to have a secondary caller that can kind of build off of what I'm doing and like make this like good call off of that. In terms of like 3 callers, 5 callers, all that, at least in my experience, I don't know how it is with other teams, but at least in my experience, it can get really bad when you have too many people talking in the mid round, because like you have all these different people say, oh, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. And then now you have like 3 different ideas and everyone's kind of looking around like, well, which one do we do? And then one guy says, no, let's do this. And then like, as he's saying we're doing this, maybe one guy's listening to that, but one guy's still listening to the other call that was made. And now it just becomes all sorts of convoluted. And then you just end up looking like noobs and losing the round, like
Yeah.
just doing something random. Right. So, uh, yeah, it definitely depends a lot on the style, like you said. Um, like if you're a super micromanagey style like we were talking about, then you probably shouldn't even really have a secondary color. Honestly, you should probably call every single part of the round. But if you are, like a looser style, or the Brazilian style, for example, then having different voices can be really good. But you just have to be careful. You got to be very careful, and you have to monitor how your team reacts to it, because again, it can get really messy sometimes if too many people are talking, too many people are giving their ideas, and now nobody knows what to do, and then it just, like I said, it just becomes a circus, like a jungle gym, literally.
Yeah. Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, too many cooks in the kitchen. Exactly, perfect way to put it.
Talking about the secondary caller, my old secondary caller, my soulmate, bro. Andrew's in the chat. He's just making fun of me for that voice crack. But yeah, I agree. I feel like the looser the team gets, then you probably can have more quote unquote secondary callers. Like if you play a really loose style, probably gonna have like 3-ish, but like the more structured that you are, you probably want less secondary callers if that's their style. Like kind of how you were saying.
Exactly. 100%.
So next question I was gonna ask you was like, kind of has to go with all styles, because all styles have star players and star oppers. How do you handle star players on your team, like in terms of like how do you play around them? Like how do you call around them? How do you approach that whole issue of this guy's obviously better mechanically than everyone else? What does he get to do differently?
Okay, so for me, I touching on like what I was saying earlier about how like I want my players to have freedom and stuff like that. For me, right? So like on our team, like Kojo is like the star player, right? Like he is like the star opper, and him and I have built a really good dynamic now over the last year or so, where like he understands that in general, like I want him to do whatever he wants, right? I want him to move around the map and use the op and kill everyone. You know what I mean? Because like the more people you kill, the easier it is for us to do our jobs, and the easier it is for us to win games. Um, the kind of like the other side of that maybe isn't looked at is you got to really get to know the person behind the player, because the person that is playing the game, like you have to know like what they like to do. You have to know how they like to play. You have to know what's going to make them mad. You have to know what's going to make them happy. You have to know uh, how your teammates are going to react to this person, right? How are they going to react to him playing his game? And maybe you can sometimes, like I've had people in the past that get mad. It's like, well, this guy gets to do whatever he wants. How come I can't do what he wants? And you have to explain to them like, sorry, but you're just not as good as him. You know what I mean? Like this is just the reality. Like you want your players that are the best mechanically to do their thing, right? I think that is super important, right? Like I think you gotta have like a star player. You gotta have someone that can like say like, guys, like I'm gonna just win us this round. You know what I mean? Like we're just throw everything else out the window, hop in his backpack, and I'll take you guys home. You know what I'm saying? And like that, as an IGL, it can be a luxury, genuinely. It can also be hard sometimes, right? Because like maybe your star player isn't playing well, and that's when you got to understand what he likes. You got to understand the type of looks that he excels in, and you got to be the one to manufacture those looks for him through the call, right? So maybe, just an example, like maybe Kojo's missing all his shots today, right? He's not hitting his shots. Like he's missing all his timings. Maybe he's getting counter ops by their opper or whatever, right? So now I gotta adapt, right? I gotta put this guy in some post plants now. I gotta get him some easy looks. So instead of letting him float around and try to find picks, let's do some executes, right? Let's get this guy into a position that he can be in a post plant and give him some easy looks that he just has to hold angles and get these free kills. And then now he's gonna it's like getting to the free throw line. You know, I always use that analogy. Like you get to the free throw line, you create some easy looks for yourself, and then you become more confident and your star player can start to make these plays and stuff like that. But I think to kind of like the blanket over that whole concept, if you will, is like that's where the leadership skills become so important. Like not necessarily the IGL calling, but the leadership as a human being. Because if you don't have leadership skills and you're not someone that people are going to listen to, even if you're maybe not the best player, then you're not going to be able to handle that star player the right way, because they're just going to be like, screw you, man. You know, I'm just going to do my own. And then that can create a bad environment for the rest of the team. That can create a bad environment for you. You can start to lose confidence in yourself, make bad calls, feel like you're letting the team down. So it really comes down to, for me at least, like having the star player that has the freedom to make plays, that has the freedom to dictate the game, right? But they also got to understand that they are a part of the team too, right? Like
Yep.
if you say this round, no, I need you to hold this angle the whole round because we're doing this, then they have to be able to do that. And that's where the leadership comes into play, because if you don't exhibit good leadership, they're not going to listen to you.
Yep.
They won't. They literally will not. So again, that going back to that earlier point, that's why it's just so important to build up that leadership ability as a human being and not just as a player. So yeah, that's how I kind of like view like that star player role, if you will, and how I personally handle it on my team.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I personally always just like I always just gave them veto, like initial veto power over what I say. So like if I were to make a call and they'd be like, "Oh, I actually want to go for this pick," like I got ADHD, bro. I could do like the calculations like within like 2 seconds. Like, okay, you do that pick, and instead we're doing this, and like I'll just like instantly adapt. But
Right.
it's like the way I always do is like they'll get like initial veto power, unless like I really want to do what we're doing. I'm like, no, they can bring up what they're saying, and then most of the time I'll be like, yeah, you could do that. I'll call around them. Uh, but unless it's like a really strong read that I have, I'll be like, no, we're actually gonna do this. Like,
Yeah.
despite like,
No.
you know what I mean?
No, for sure. That you got to have the ability to say no as an
Yeah,
IGL. Like, yeah, like you have to get comfortable with telling people no,
yeah,
because if you let people walk over you and like at the end of the day, you're just going to be the one that's frustrated, because when you lose the game, you're going to be thinking, man, I knew we should have did this, but you didn't say anything, so it's your fault.
yeah,
You didn't tell that guy no, right? So you got to be really comfortable saying no to people, even your star players.
yeah, 100%. Um, so that kind of has to do with like star players that they're calling what they want the start of the round. With that in mind, what should an IGL establish on their team in freeze time to have like good protocols to have like the most efficient freeze times possible? Because when I was first starting off, everyone would be joking or like complaining about the last round before, like, "Oh, dude, what the fuck? Like, I missed the shot," and it's like you're wasting
Yeah.
like really precious time. So like, what's a good like checklist that you can give to people, newer teams and IGLs, for freeze time protocols?
For freeze time, well, the first thing is that like, and this dynamic will kind of develop naturally over time with your team individually. Like the team dynamic will kind of handle itself, if you will, if you create that environment. But the first thing that everyone should know as an IGL is like, especially in matches, right? Like as soon as the round is over, it's over. And when freeze time comes, like like I'm talking, right? Like this is what I want, and like if someone has suggestions, fine. That's great. If you have a call you feel like you really think can work, then call it. Great. But you need to shut up about the last round, right? The last round is over. It doesn't matter anymore. You need to focus on this right here, right? And as far as like the in-game protocols, like let's just say, for example, it's in freeze time, and like it's okay to ask sometimes too as the IGL. It's okay to be like, guys, like what do you think we can do this round? What do you think we can abuse, right? Like maybe your extremity alert is like, hey man, this anchor, I feel like we could just kill him and win the round because he's playing a different way. Okay, yeah, let's do it, right? And then you create the protocols around that. Okay, cool. We're gonna go contact B on this guy. Take your guy that's like the normal support player. All right, you hold this smoke and hold flashes, flash on contact, right? Or maybe we're just gonna pop on this guy, right? You kind of like you create that conversation within the team, or you just start and you said, this is what we're doing, this and that, right? And then the protocols kind of handle themselves because you've already told people what to do. But it's really important also as an IGL to, especially if you're going to play a looser style, that people have freedom to make these opening picks, take these opening moves. It's very important, and this is something it took me a while to learn too. It's very important to tell the rest of the team like the next step, if that makes sense. So like your
Yes, yeah,
opper's like, yeah, so your opper's like, I'm gonna go out and get this kill, right? And I think a lot of lower level IGLs just be like, yeah, let's go. Right. And then the guy gets at the kill, and then we're like, well, now what? You know what I mean? And then we're
yeah,
just sitting there, and then people start getting picked off one by one, and then now you're just sitting there like, well, shit. Like
yeah,
I was so behind. Yeah, he's gonna get that kill. We're gonna win the round. But now, what do we do? Oh no, we just lost, right? So
yeah.
it's very, very important to, as an IGL, to communicate to your team what the next step is gonna be off of that.
Yes, yes,
Right. Okay, guys. So if he gets the kill, then it could be whatever, right? Group here, we're gonna instantly hit this site, or if he gets or if he doesn't, if he dies, right? Like start looking for kill on the extremities, or whatever the case might be, right? It can literally be whatever you want, but there has to be that next step, because if you don't tell people that next step, then most times they're going to kind of meander off and do some play that's maybe not the best, right? Like,
yep,
yeah, maybe sometimes some teammate will just make a questionable play and get some crazy entry and win you the round. But you got to be very careful as an IGL of knowing when it was a good round win and when it was just lucky. Like, because maybe they made a bad mistake, or your teammate did something that wasn't like replicable, like they just ran through a smoke and got a double entry, and it's like, yeah, in the moment, great, right? Looks cool, but like that's probably not going to work again. So it's very important to have that next step, to tell your team what you want out of them based off of what is being said in freeze time.
yeah. Honestly, I would even argue that the next step is like it kind of is like just a realization I had just now as you're saying that, is that like that's almost uh just your job entirely is that next step, where it's like if so it'll apply to like all types of styles. So like we're going back to the old styles of like heavily rehearsed, they still have that next step, it's just it's already been established,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have like an on the fly call, or like the looser teams, it's like that next step has to be established, but there always has to be a next step ready to be there. It could be pre-established, or it can be established as you're calling what you want to do. So it's like I remember Andrew brought that up to our team a while ago, was the micro if thens, where it's like
Yeah,
that dude, that's like a whole nother level up of not even just for calling but for all players, where it's like you could be holding an angle, and then you're just like, if they hit A, I'm doing this, if they don't, I'm doing this,
mm-hmm.
and it's like just already establishing that next step just like gets everyone on the same page just instantly,
Mm-hmm.
and that just becomes more and more important uh if someone's making an on the fly call, mid round or freeze time, where it's like, hey, I'm going for this pick, like you said, not you don't want to respond like, yeah, like let's do it. Like you want to be like, okay, if you get it, we do this, if not, we do this. You establish both options, and then as soon as it happens or it doesn't happen, everyone knows instantly what to do. And it's like that's a
Exactly.
whole nother level up, is those micro if thens.
Mm-hmm.
um
And
yeah,
that's why
yeah,
it's also really important to, like, when you are practicing with your team, to take the time to talk about that, talk about the protocols that you guys want to do, talk about the reactions you want to do. Because if you put in the time beforehand, you talk about these things, then as an IGL, when it's showtime in the match and it's actually happening, these live reps, you don't necessarily have to say all these things and think
Yep.
of all these crazy things anymore because you've already established it beforehand. Okay, yeah, he gets this kill, then and after over time, it starts to become like second nature to your players. Okay, you got this kill, now I can go do this. I can whatever, and then you don't have to call as much as an IGL because everyone understands what the goal is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. It's like what I was saying is like either you have the next step pre-established or you make it on the fly. But ideally you want it pre-established, then you just don't even have to say anything. Um, but yeah, the question was about protocols, and I kind of realized too midway through the question that might be hard to answer because, like you said, it depends on the style of team that you play on. Some if it's a really loose style, the IGL might not be talking right away. He might be letting the other players say what they want to do. But if it's like a very structured style, instantly the IGL is talking. He's saying what you want to happen. But the stuff that you did say though, it actually applies to all styles. Like there's certain things that you want to have established in freeze time that no matter how you play the game, like you should be doing these things. Like you should not be complaining about the last round, no matter what style that you have.
Yes,
Um,
100%.
that's one of them I could think of. I don't know if you can think of any others for
freeze time.
I guess like another one you could say is like if the talk you can have someone ready to pause, maybe like a protocol ready for that, where it's like if 8 seconds into the freeze time of the 15, you see that the conversation's not going to end soon, just like be ready to pause if needed. That can apply to all styles.
Yeah, that can definitely apply to all styles. That's a good one. Maybe another thing is kind of like if like in terms of like the pausing, like I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Like if as an IGL you're going to freeze time and you're thinking I don't really know what to do, I don't know what to call, then you should pause then, right? And that is when I think that's like a pretty safe protocol that can apply to all styles. Like take a pause. All right, guys, like let's just have a conversation because like I need some help right now.
Yep.
I'm kind of struggling on like what we should do, right? And I think that maybe a lot of IGLs might think that that's bad and you should never do that, but that's completely false. Like if you do establish all the things that we talked about earlier in terms of leadership, creating the environment, being positive, then you will find that your teammates will be really willing to help you out. And they'll be like, hey, yeah, I got you, man. I think we can do this, this, and that. And like, I like throughout my time playing like in matches, we've won so many rounds and I didn't even say anything. You know what I mean? Like I was just like, somebody said this, and I was like, you know what, man? Like let's do it. And then we just win off of that, right? So it's like it's definitely like it's that team effort, like creating that conversation. And then I guess maybe the last thing for freeze time I would say is just kind of like like just making sure that you just make sure that whenever freeze time ends, whether it be a pause, whatever, that like everyone's on the same page, right? I mean, I know that's
Yeah.
kind of like goes without being said, but just make sure everyone's on the same page. Even if it's not even your call, maybe someone else made a call, be like, all right, guys, like, we're doing this. And just like be like, have that final say. So everyone's like, okay, this is what we're doing. And there's no confusion in that sense.
Yeah, that's actually a really good one. I didn't even think about that. I remember that happened
Mm-hmm.
one game. I forgot what we were playing Nuke, and everyone was just had an idea, and everyone was talking, and the freeze time ended, and I was like, "Yo, fuck that, we're doing this." Like there was too many ideas at once. Like we have to get on the same page. And after the game, like during the game, I was like, "Fuck, I just sound like a dickhead for saying that." But my teammates were like, "No, that was like really good that you did that. Like you brought everyone back to the same page. Like we all went into the round with the same ideas. We're not doing different things."
Exactly.
Also, speaking on what you're saying too about asking questions, that was a huge level up for me personally, because there was like definitely some like weird ego things that I had going on where it's like, oh, I have to be the big brain, like I have to, if I don't have anything to say, then I'm failing, I'm not an IGL. And it's like that's not true at all. Like your whole job as an IGL is to like start the round with the most informed call, and that might not even be from you. Like it's like you want to paint a picture like the other team, and sometimes the best way to paint that picture is like to not even like make a call. It's like it's to ask questions, and then you find out what's going on that side of the map, you find out what's going on your side of the map, and then you could put the two and together, like, oh, they're doing this right now we can actually do this. Like like it's all about painting that really good picture of the other team to really make an informed call to counter them. And a lot of times your teammates are the ones painting that picture with you. It's not just you, you know. You don't want to be making uninformed calls. Also, the last thing I want to say too, for people out there, always pause at the last second. That's like a huge thing. It's very small. Don't call a pause instantly. You're wasting 15 seconds. Like,
true.
Might as well call it the last second.
Might as well get that extra 15 seconds. True.
Yeah. I'm probably gonna have to end the stream here because it is going kind of over for me. Where can everyone find you at? If you have anything coming, your Twitter or anything you want to like plug.
Not really. I'm not a socialist guy, man. I guess like I'm really not on social media at all. I will say like I will say like if anybody cares or wants to ask a question or whatever, like you could just find me on Steam and add me. Like I don't know, like I'm not gonna sit here and promise that I'll give everyone all of my time, but I am pretty good at just talking to people like a normal person. So like just anyone that's, if you wanted to reach out to me, like don't hesitate. Like I'll answer genuinely. Like I don't think I've ever had a message from someone that I just don't answer. Like even if it's to say like no, like I can't help you with that, I'll say that. I won't just like ghost you. So just, or if you are a socials guy, you can ask Coach. He'll tell me. He'll be like, oh yeah, somebody asked about you, and then I can hit you up that way. But yeah, definitely don't message me on like social media or anything like that, because I don't ever look at that. But if you want to find me on Steam or Discord, you can add me. You can ask questions. I'm pretty open to that. So
I really respect that, man. That's like actually really, really huge of you to do, because not a lot of people do that. That's I really respect that. Yeah, is there anything we can see from you soon, like tourneys, matches, with Take Flight coming up?
So we have, our next match is not till the 7th of May against Nouns. We're taking like a little week break right now. People just kind of reset, get off the game for a while, go do some. I know like one of my teammates, Gabe's gonna go travel for a little bit. I got some plans with my wife. We're gonna go do some stuff. But like the next thing that you can expect to see from us is that match against Nouns, which is on the 7th of May. I don't think there's any qualifiers or anything in between then, but yeah. So if you guys want to follow, then that's when you'll see us next.
Take Flight stream that, right?
Yeah. Saban's the org-owner. He streams all of our games, and he's really good about that. He's a really nice guy.
Okay. Was his Twitch just Saban? Or is it TakeFlight.gg?
It's TakeFlight GG is what it is. Yeah, TakeFlight GG.
Okay, so yeah, for anyone out there who wants to watch his games, it will be at TakeFlight GG on Twitch. But yeah, dude, there's so many questions here that we didn't get into. I kind of expected this, and there's so many more that I could definitely add. You said you'd be down for a possible part 2?
Yeah, I'm down, man.
Awesome.
Just let me know when.
Yeah, I would.
Let me know when. I am completely free until the 29th of April, and then that's when my time is going to start to be more limited. But anytime this weekend, next week, whenever, like just let me know, and yeah, we can do it, bro.
Okay, yeah, we could probably set something up. Oh, also, before I finish this, IDEK in the chat said, tell MDS he's goated. So I gotta tell you that. But yeah, maybe some in the future we might do a part 2, or maybe I can get like several IGLs on, and it's like a whole circle jerk about IGLing. We could throw out all that information. But I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this and being an open book, man. Like I really do appreciate that.
For sure, man. I'm glad to help, man. Seriously.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll be it for this episode, and thanks to everyone for watching. And yeah, make sure you guys follow Take Flight on Twitch and see his next game. So you guys have a good rest of your day. Peace out.